Hello and welcome to Concert Pipeline. I'm Steve Jones. Today on the program we have Tom Heyman. I had a chance to talk to Tom about his new album that he has that's coming out here in just a bit. And we talked about a lot of different stuff. His new album is called 24th Street Blues. It's coming out on October 6th, and I got a chance to listen to it. Definitely recommend it. It's good listening, and he's going to play a song from it later in the program, which is pretty awesome as well. So, yeah, we had a fun chat. So we'll get to that in just a bit here. Before we do, I'll catch everybody up on what's going on in my life. What did I have going on? I was supposed to go fishing today with my buddy John, and we got all our some stuff together earlier in the week, and then last night we loaded up the kayaks on the back of his truck, and I got the rest of most of the rest of my stuff over to his house, so it's just ready to go. So we could leave at 3:45 in the morning today, and I went to sleep at like 9 p.m. last night because I wanted to get the better part of 6 hours of sleep, and so I went to sleep at 9. He's texting me at like 10 and asked if I'd seen the weather, and he sent me a link to a video on a Facebook group for Facebook fishing group, and apparently someone had posted video of how much chop there was in the wave yesterday, and it was pretty gnarly, and someone went overboard on their kayak, or something happened that they had heard, and so it was ill-advised to go out today, which is unfortunate. And I don't know how much of this has to do with the pending hurricane that's going on in Southern California, because we're pretty far from that. That was speculation that went around, but I don't know how much truth there is to it. But all I know is I was awoken at 10 p.m. To find out that my fishing trip to go out rock fishing and hopefully for lingcod and some good fish was canceled. So might happen again in September. We'll see how September shakes out, but I was looking forward to it. It was going to be a lot of fun. So instead, I've just pretty much taken it easy today, and I'm going back and watching Fargo, the movie, again with William H. Macy. So that's fun, but not getting out. And so I'm not good at taking all weekend and not doing anything. So I'm probably going to go tomorrow and take my puppy out to the beach in Pacifica, and just relax there. I don't envision any big issues with going to the beach, but I just got to get outside somewhere, and that seems like a safe choice. So going to do that, and that's kind of the highlight of what's going on in my life right now. I'm not sure. I don't have anything too exciting coming up. I'm working on training my puppy for duck season, and she's struggling with some of the training, so I'm having to adjust my approach to better adapt to what she needs. That's not very exciting though. She's not doing as well as I would like her to, and obviously this is my first duck dog, and it all lands on my shoulders. I don't know. I'm just not doing what she needs to connect the steps in the program that I'm going through. So I'm going to just adjust the program and try and still make progress forward. That's my story there. So as I said, Tom Heyman is on the program. He's from San Francisco, so not too far away. And we had a really good chat. And let's go ahead and bring Tom on into the program. Here he is. How's your day treating you, Tom?
Pretty good. I've already been to the doctor and had a rehearsal.
Oh, you're knocking stuff out, right? So
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff in one day for me.
yeah. Tell me about the rehearsal. How do you prepare for that?
It was a rehearsal, just like I'm a sort of hired guitar player on somebody else's gig in a couple of weeks, and he's coming up from LA, and I was just running the band through their paces before, in anticipation of the gig, because we just have the day of the gig to rehearse. So it was just a sort of journeyman thing.
Yeah. Do you do a lot of work with other people still? Like you have a
I
lot on their.
do. I didn't, uh, kind of like, it's like weird. I got into a mode of trying to say yes to everything after 3 years of being well, after the pandemic, sort of, and so it's gotten a little weird because I'm a little busier than I want to be, which is weird,
That's a tough.
with a record coming out and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I own a lot of guitars, and I have to justify owning them. So I have to take these gigs with people so that I can justify having them and maybe getting more of them.
How many
Just
guitars you got?
I don't want to say.
We don't need to put a number on it. That's
But
fair.
let's put it this way. This is less than 25,
Okay. Okay.
less than 25. So, and all of them get used.
Yeah. Well, that's
For
good
me.
because if you're buying them and not using them, then what are you doing? Then they're just
Yeah,
taking up space, right? So,
yeah. Well, there's worse things that you can spend your money on, I think.
yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I like it. Well, let's start at the beginning of it. So tell me a little bit about kind of what music you listened to as a kid. What did your parents have on in the house?
That's so interesting. It's something I think about a lot. My parents are both super into music. My dad, um, was way into jazz. Um, a lot of piano players. He was like super into Thelonious Monk, and he liked Monk. He liked Art Tatum a lot. He liked Earl Hines. Sort of just right around the bop era, when it was beginning, sort of. So he was like really into that stuff. And then my parents are in their 80s now. Um, and so they were real Kennedy Democrats. So folk music also loomed really large in the house, like, some of it good, some of it bad, a lot of Peter, Paul and Mary, John Denver, Gordon Lightfoot, and so there was a lot of music around the house. And then us kids, we had our own record player, which is weird. We had like was like sort of like a dancette type all in one deal, and a lot of kids records, like a lot of
Yeah.
Peter and the Wolf and various the Jungle Book and stuff like that. So like I was listening to music really, really early. And then also, I'm old enough to where like AM radio, as soon as I had like a small transistor radio, AM radio was fairly wide open at a certain point. Especially where I grew up in suburban New Jersey, right outside of New York City. There was like a lot of powerful, sort of rock stations. So you could hear on AM radio, you would hear everything from, I like the OJs and the Beach Boys and the Hollies and BJ Thomas and and stuff like that would all be on the same station,
Yeah.
and so it was like a sort of a golden age of radio, and it was also the golden age of sort of FM radio when I was old enough to figure that out, so.
Yeah. And you say you've been reflecting on that. Do you like to go down that path and kind of pull out some of that old stuff that you listened to? Or do you...
Sometimes, I mean, the thing that stuck with me the most from that era, and that I sort of never, um, you know, that I've never let go of, is like my mom and dad were super into Gordon Lightfoot. So I really like Gord's Gold was like a big record around the house, and Sundown was a big record around the house. And so those songs like it really informed me early on, of a certain type of songwriting. And it's just kind of stuck with me. And it's like, for a long time it kind of wasn't cool, and then it was cool again.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I was gutted when Gordo died.
it
It
was it
really
was a blow. Yeah.
kind of. I mean, I was lucky enough to see him a bunch of times, so and he was, in a way, he was fairly diminished at the end, but he was still doing it in this like way that was like unbelievable, so.
Did you ever get a chance to meet him? Tell him how much you...
No, no, no.
No, no.
No,
No.
I mean, I would have loved to
Yeah.
have, but
Yeah.
last show I saw him, it was at the Palace of Fine Arts in San Francisco.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
We were pretty close to the stage, so it was fairly astonishing, that he's so small. He's he was like a tiny guy. Like he had like all sort of any sort of robustness had sort of left him. He's very thin, but he just like he didn't really have a minder or a roadie, and he just had his own guitars on stage, and he just like switching all night, kind of leading the band with his guitar. He was like amazing. It was cool.
Yeah.
He was a
Yeah.
lifer.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And when did you pick up the guitar?
Uh, you know, uh, I guess probably when I was like 12, maybe 11 or 12, and then I picked it up, but I took some lessons, and I just didn't really connect with it the way that I wanted to. Like I didn't know what I wanted, and this is like the era of like Guitar Heroes and like Led Zeppelin and stuff that just seemed so. I had a nylon string guitar, and my parents were like, "You're gonna take lessons," and I took lessons with this dude that was just like not great. Like trying to teach me like classical. It's like, I don't want to learn this, man. Can't you show me like how to play like can't you show me like how to play Stairway to Heaven? No, he couldn't. And
Yeah.
so it was like, and so I had a guitar, and I didn't really connect with it until I was about 17 years old. Like I had one, I could play some chords and stuff, and but I just didn't connect with it really properly. And then when I was about 17, I guess maybe I was 16 or 17, I got this teacher that was he just like I sort of discovered some stuff on like college radio around the time, like various like folk shows and stuff like that, that had like country blues, like Mississippi John Hurt style country blues, and also like Doc Watson flat picking guitar, and like Black Mountain Rag, like stuff like I can't do it anymore. I could do it when I was a kid, stuff like that. And I discovered this guy that could really play that stuff, and he showed it to me, and it just I went from being like somebody who couldn't really play guitar to somebody who connected so deeply with what I was being taught that I got I learned a whole bunch of songs. Like I didn't really, everything suffered except for except for that. Like, so schoolwork went out the window, and, stuff like that. So I got really into, just sort of Mississippi John Hurt, Mance Lipscomb, Reverend Gary Davis, and then Doc Watson and other folk music stuff. And that was like really not cool. It like my friends were all into, my classmates were into like the Outlaws and Leonard Skinner and Led Zeppelin, and like some kids were hip to Van Halen. It was just like starting to really happen, and that just stuff just seemed so far away from what it just seemed unattainable. Like, how does someone do that? I don't know how you do that stuff. And this other stuff just like resonated with me, and I went pretty deep on that for a while. And then I got heavily into like sort of a kind of like a traditional electric blues thing, and it was just, and I sort of just taught myself in a really slow way.
Yeah. And was it always guitar, or did you dabble in other instruments as well?
Not really. I mean, when I was quite young, I took piano. And when I say quite young, I mean like in third grade. And I probably took piano for about a year and a half. My older sister took piano. My dad played piano. And we all went to the same teacher, and it was the same thing. Like I forever to this day regret not really learning to play the piano. Like at a certain point, I got to a certain point when I was in, I don't know how old you are when you're third grade, like 8 or 9 or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
I got to a point where I could play some stuff out of like the Jesus Christ Superstar songbook,
yeah,
yeah, but once again, it was a thing. Like, what did I wanted to play like Elton John, and my teacher was not going to show me that. She couldn't do it. She wanted me to learn how to play, some Beethoven stuff or something. And not that I just wish I had kind of stuck with it, or I wish I had a better teacher. I regret not, you know, really sticking with that, because just playing the piano is, it's kind of an
yeah.
invaluable thing. And I can sit down at a piano now and play it a little bit like a guitar player. I know
Sure.
how to make chords and stuff like that, but I just wish I had sort of stuck with it, but I was really turned off by like this sort of regimented approach and stuff.
Yeah.
And also
And
I just, I wasn't ready. And I don't think I have any particular, musical ability. I think I just sort of wanted to learn how to play. And that's what helped me when I finally sunk into, doing it. I don't think I have a particularly good ear or anything like that. Like other people I knew, I grew up with kids that were like mind-boggling musicians, like
yeah,
absolutely, like how could you do that? You just learned that whole side A and B of that Frank Zappa record, and you're playing like, and it just seemed so alien to me. Like I couldn't hear it.
yeah,
Like I remember, like a good, like a buddy of mine in high school, like when Dire Straits came out, he just taught himself those licks, and I was like, "What?" And
yeah. How do you do that?
it
Yeah,
never occurred to me to go, "Hey Joe, um, show me." Like it was
you're,
unattainable, so I just sort of went my own way.
yeah. And so you said you kind of really got into it around 17. Were you in any high school bands, or you just did your own thing kind of
No, I
around that
did my
time?
own thing. And then when I got to college, when I was a freshman in college, I wound up like my freshman year, and I was a kid. I mean, I just really was kind of like, I think about myself at 18, and like it was just like, I had had some experiences in life, but I was a very, I was very much of a kid. And
Yeah.
I wound up, my freshman year, I wound up in a band because I knew this sort of, a little bit of this sort of bluegrass style of playing. I wound up in a band with some guys that were quite a bit older than me. They were like seniors, and I just could flat pick a little bit, like enough, with enough authenticity to be in a band. So I was, the first semester of my freshman year of college, I'm in a band with a 5-string banjo player that was a senior in college, but had also been in the Navy for 4 years.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
so he was old. He was older than all of us. Like
Yeah.
he had gone to the Navy, and then went to college after he got out of the Navy. So he seemed impossibly old. And he was a terrific musician, and he had really taught himself how to play on a ship, like on his time off and stuff like that. So I was in a band with these guys. So with an upright bass player, of a 5-string banjo player, and a mandolin player, and that was like heady. And then I after that, I stopped playing with those guys, and I had like an acoustic blues duo with a harmonica player, and we would play we had like 40 songs down,
Wow.
and so we, like I played like a little bit, but at the same time, I had an electric guitar, and I really wanted, I was like really into like certain, like punk and new wave and stuff like that. And I sort of wanted to play rock and roll too. And I sort of started playing catch up on that stuff in college. So yeah, that it really started for me when I was in college.
Were you living in Philly at that point,
No, no,
or?
no. I know. Philadelphia was, I was going to college in Maine. I went to college in central Maine. And Philly was like that's a whole other sort of thing. I say about Philadelphia, I grew up in northern New Jersey. My
Mhm.
city was New York City, not Philadelphia.
No.
We just wended our way to Philadelphia. and I was an adult when I got to Philadelphia. So I say I spent my formative adult years in Philadelphia. So I was, 24 when we moved to Philly, maybe 23, 24 when I moved to Philly. So, I just sort of had on and off again band experiences, but by the time I got to Philly, I was in a real band, and these were all guys that I went to college with, and we sort of had the same thing, and we were determined to be in a band. And we started out in Washington D.C. for whatever reason, no real reason. I had some musical connections down there. My sister lived there; she was going to college there. It was a city, can move
It
into a
works,
city.
yeah.
Yeah, like what? Yeah, okay, whatever. And not really realizing how crazy expensive like the Metro DC area was.
Oh
It
yeah.
did have like a really vital music scene, and has for years. It's the most, as far as guitar players, it's the most gunslinging place you've ever been. Like Austin, Texas makes a big show about blah 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 blah. Austin, Texas, Stevie. Nothing
No.
compared to DC. DC just had this. It's a crossroads, and it just had this talent. Danny Gatton and everything that he, and all of his acolytes, and Roy Buchanan and all of his acolytes, and then just like Bobby Parker was based there. There's a whole crazy jazz thing there. There was a whole unbelievable country music thing there. And I think because it's such a transient place, and it attracted so many professionals and stuff like that. And it's also like, it's not the North and it's not the South. And, just, you know, it was a gunslinging place, like guitar wise, just like, whoa, dude.
Yeah.
And it was cool. That was cool. And then we all just moved to Phil. This was by this time the band was called Go to Blazes. We moved to Philadelphia like all at once. We had a record deal, moved to Philadelphia, rehearsed every night. Like in a band, we could get a band house for like insanely cheap. Like we were all paying like $200 a month rent for this enormous
Wow.
place. Like $200 a month each. And just rehearsing every night until this record came out, and we just like sort of showed up on the scene, and it was like sort of like we were a gang. It was amazing. you
Yeah.
know
And did you tour behind the album that you made there?
well, we were in Philadelphia for almost 10 years, and one, two, three, 4, 5 records, 6 if you count like a compilation, and 7 if you count some other stuff, and a bunch of singles. And yeah, we toured from Philadelphia a lot. We toured the United States, um, you know, different legs of it numerous times. We toured Europe numerous times. Yeah, it was a good place. It was a good place to operate out of. Just it was, you know, 90 minutes from New York, 2+ hours from DC. You could get anywhere fast, close to international airport. It was a great place to be from.
Yeah.
So yeah, a
I
bunch
know
of records.
I know we're kind of made it to your mid-20s, but I wanted to actually talk about hitchhiking from across the country from New Jersey. Like, and what was that experience like? I've never even driven cross country, but
Well,
I couldn't even imagine hitchhiking.
it was weird. My friends, like, people just hitchhiked.
Yeah.
Like I'm older than you, and I graduated from high school. I did that when I was, I graduated from high school like 6 months early. I was just like, I hated high school. I it was just like one of those things. It was difficult for me, um, for whatever reason. And I went to work, um, and saved up a bunch of money, and then I had a friend in Minneapolis, and I just hitchhiked most of the way, like most of the way across the U.S. And it was like it was amazing, and it was frightening. uh it was I think about it, I don't know how I did it, honestly. I had these friends that did it, and I looked up to them, and I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna try that. It's cool. And I'd hitched before, like, like you could hitch around New Jersey. I hitchhiked to school, like I lived far enough away from high school that, you could just put your thumb out and get a ride, and somebody else's parents would pick you up and like, why aren't your parents driving you to school? So my parents, they're like, get to school on your own.
Figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, figure it out. You can walk. It was only like a mile and a half or something like that. It wasn't really that far, and I was just like, oh, I'm late. I'm going to stick my thumb out and somebody's mom who gets him to ride to school every day is going to pick me up.
Yeah.
Does your mom want a carpool? No, she doesn't. No,
Nope.
that's why I'm hitchhiking.
Yeah. My,
And
my mom was very figure it out too. Like I had to bike to school during El Nino in high school, and it was like,
yeah, and
yeah.
like it wasn't a hardship,
Yeah.
like I didn't,
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't grow. I'm not saying I grew up, trudging across, like with nothing but,
No.
tissue boxes for my shoe. No, it's just like my parents were just like, that's where high school is. You can walk there in 40 minutes or
Right.
less,
Yeah.
just go.
Yeah. Just go. Yeah. Get there. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know
Yeah. And so you had those 5 albums. You toured across the country. Where did that take you from there after those albums that you did?
well, band broke up, and we broke up. It wasn't like a disaster or anything like that. We were all friends. It just had sort of run its course. People wanted to get on with their lives. I didn't. I I was like, and I lived in Philly for a year after we broke up, and then um, I made my way out to San Francisco. I was like carrying on this, long distance love affair with the woman who's now my wife, and she was living in Portland, Oregon. I knew her from Philly, and she came back out west to go to grad school to get her MFA in painting and whatever. And we were just like sort of leading our lives, and this just kept reconnecting. And so we made this decision to meet in San Francisco. And I had connections. I had some connections here. I had another sister. I come from a big family. I've got 4 sisters and a brother. And another one of my sisters lived in San Francisco. So um, I wasn't going straight into the breach. And I just felt like I had to get out of Philadelphia. Um, and I think it was a mistaken thought. I just felt like if I was gonna try and do something on my own, I wasn't the singer in Go to Blazes. I was a songwriter. I was one of the 2 primary songwriters, and I was the lead guitar player. And after the band broke up, I didn't sing. I was in a band with a singer who was so good that I just didn't open my mouth.
Yeah.
I just didn't, and it would really, it was really dumb because it's just not something that you can just do. Certainly I couldn't just open my mouth and start singing like somebody who could sing as good as Ted, who was the singer in Go to Blazes. He was just like, he just had he had really good pitch, and he had just like a really good sort of rock and roll voice. And it was a fairly extraordinary instrument. And it was like, not even open my mouth and let this sort of weird caterwauling come out of it, and I didn't feel like I could do that in Philly. And I'm driving across the country, and I was just, with all my stuff in an Econoline van, and I was like, I was determined to not be dependent on somebody else to sing my songs again. So I just sort of willed myself into doing it, and it's weird. It's like taken me this long to get comfortable with my voice, such as it is. It's a
And
funny thing.
and did you start songwriting at the same time? Like,
No. I was a songwriter all through Go to Blazes. I was like one of the,
okay.
me and Ted wrote most of the songs in the band. So I was,
Okay.
my songwriting started the minute that I was in an original band. I knew that, like, oh, you have to write songs. Okay. So I'm going to write songs. So I taught myself to do it. And so it was, for that whole band, like I was, the 2 of us were the primary songwriters. But then, I just wasn't, gonna give my songs to somebody else to sing. I was like, I can't be beholden to anybody anymore that way. I have to learn how to sing my own songs, not write a song and turn it over to somebody else, you know.
Yeah.
Uh,
And, and what did you love about San Francisco? What is it about the city?
well, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it's just like it's kind of like a weirdly, it's a very like physically beautiful setting. You know, you know, there's just so much green and you know, just like you know, wherever you are in the city, you're never that far from the water. There's you know there's you know there's it had everything, you know. And it's also just like crazy wide open in a way that, you know, like Philadelphia was a wild city, like in a way, but Philadelphia also, like, you know, it's like you had to buy liquor from the state liquor store. You know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
so, like if you didn't make it there on Sunday when they closed at 2, you know, there was
You're
no.
not
But in
drinking.
San Francisco, you could go to the corner store and you could buy a gallon of Jim Beam until 2 o'clock in the morning any night of the week. So
Yeah.
like San Francisco, just like it was a partying place, man. And I was a hard partying dude, and you know, I like, you know, like I like to drink and I like to party and I like to hang out, and there was that, and it just, you know, I had also been coming to San Francisco since I was like a young child, like I can't,
67 was your first time in San Francisco,
I
right?
think it was
Yeah.
67 or 68. I can't remember. I was just talking to my dad about that. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was 68 or 60. It was 60. It was somewhere between 1967 and 1969. But yeah, I came with my parents. My dad's a lawyer. He was working on a big case out here. It was like the crazy thing where like the summer of like the hippies, whatever,
Yeah.
you know, we didn't see any of that. We were
No?
like, no, no, man, no. We were downtown in a nice hotel. My sister were like little kids, you know, like tiny little kids, you know, like I was, I guess I was 6 years old the first time I came here. So, so it was 68. It was the summer of 68. I think I was, you know, 5 or 6. I was little, and you know, we were just like staying, you know, like hanging out in a hotel downtown, or you know, going to Fisherman's Wharf with my parents. The hippies were not there. We were not seeing
Yeah.
hippies. You know, like you know, maybe they were around, but you know, San Francisco's always been weird that way. They're not, you know, like you know, there's downtown is different from the rest of the city,
Oh,
like
yeah.
you know, so many places, you know.
Yeah. Maybe they were in
So
Golden Gate Park. Maybe that's where.
they were up in, they were at Haight Ashbury, they were in the
Yeah.
Mission, they were,
Yeah.
you know, maybe they were in Noe Valley, but but they weren't, you know, down down near Coit Tower. And you know,
Yeah.
and North Beach you know, was you know, there were beats certainly there and hippies there, but it was also, North Beach was like very much of a, you know, a working class, also, you know, Italian sort of and touristy place, and so it was less apparent there. You know, we were in North Beach a lot, just because it's cool. You know, it was like it's got like neat stuff, you know, and it was close to where my parents where the hotel was, you know. So, but I've been coming here for a long time. I'd come here like you know, I came again like in the early 70s with my folks again. I came, you know, and visited in the 80s. I came here on tour. My sister lived here. You know, like there's like a real pull. Like it sank its claws into me at a young age. So, you know,
Yeah.
it's weird. Um,
Where do you like to go to shows there? My favorite is the Fillmore, by the way. So that's the correct answer.
you know, Fillmore is amazing. I like the Fillmore. I like the, you know, like if I go into like actual concerts, I really like the Great American Music Hall.
Yeah. That's nice.
It's,
Yeah.
you know, I just like that old school, you know, vaudeville house sort of thing that it's got, you know. Plus it's just the sound is really good, and I've played there a bunch of times with various bands, and it's just a terrific place to see a band. I like that. I like the Bottom of the Hill.
Yes.
You know, it's a great. You know, I work at a bar called the Makeout Room,
Okay.
and you know, there's a lot of good shows there. Uh, There's there's a bar out by the beach called the Riptide that's owned by a friend of mine. That's a fun place to see bands. You know,
Mm.
I like almost all the rooms in San Francisco. You
Yeah.
know, like they all have something to offer, and any place that's still open. I love the
Yeah.
Chapel. Chapel is really
Oh
good.
yeah. Chapel's good.
Any place that's still open. I'm like,
Yeah, grateful. I'll tell you, like when COVID hit and Slim shut, that really hit me because, like, I grew up going to shows there. Like I mean, that was
well, Slim's
one.
was just such a. It
Yes.
was like it was a great place. It wasn't.
Yeah.
The sound wasn't always awesome.
They have
But
those
they
poles that are in the way
yeah,
and
that's
everything.
like structural difficulties.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I saw so many good shows there, and I played so many fun. I've played so many fun shows there, and when you played there, there's this thing that like they just it was like this. There was always like a band meal,
Yeah.
and it was just like, oh, well, that's cool. I mean, I guess the fact that Boz Scaggs is one of the owners, or even if he was like a minority owner of it or whatever, or really a silent partner, the idea that like there was a band meal that was
Yeah.
cooked in the place, it was like, that's pure class. It's like made you feel like a little bit special.
Yeah.
So it's all a lot of good shows there, a lot of fun stuff.
Yeah. Um, so let's talk about the new album a little bit. So it comes out on October 6th, 24th Street Blues, and it's named kind of about your home, really, right? And
Yeah, I mean, I just sort of started writing songs about, it didn't start out to be like a concept record.
yeah,
I just had these songs that were kind of about the neighborhood. I've lived here now longer than I've lived anywhere, which is hard for me to fathom. I still don't, I'm not a Californian. I was born in Brooklyn, New York. My family is all, both sides of my family, you know, go back, come from New York City. And but now I've spent like, I've spent a lot of time. I've lived here longer than I've lived anywhere. And it's strange. And it's also strange to live in a place long enough to see it, change a couple of different ways. When I lived in Philadelphia, um, when I moved to Philadelphia, Philadelphia was on junk bond status. I mean,
mm,
and it was in bad shape. And it was about maybe it was about 5 years after the Move bombing. I don't know if you know about the Move bombing in Philadelphia, where the
I don't think so.
Move was anyway. The Philadelphia police dropped an incendiary device on a house that was like a sort of cult people lived in it, and the Philadelphia Police Department dropped a bomb on a house, and they burned, they burned a city block of homes, and
Yeah,
it was like this devastating, crazy thing. And so that's when I moved to Philadelphia, and by the time I left Philadelphia, it had really reversed course, and it was like there was a concerted effort to make it a better place. And I left before that, and before this utter transformation happened to the city, but it was in progress. And I wasn't really that aware of it when I was leaving. I was like, oh, stuff's getting better here, I guess, kind of. But then, I got to San Francisco, and I lived here long enough to watch it go through these sort of, and lived on the same street for long enough to watch 24th Street like change and then change again.
yeah,
And I don't think it's anything that doesn't happen to any urban area. It goes through changes. Like, you stay the same, everything around you changes, and you can,
yeah,
and it's hard to wrap your head around that. But I 24th Street didn't have any bookstores on it. Now it's got two. There was one place to get coffee, or like there was a couple of, like, now there's several. And then it's also gone through these other changes, and then there was just like, so a very long-winded way of saying stuff changed, and I just
yeah,
started writing about it, you know,
yeah.
sort of.
The mission is on fire. So tell me about that experience. And I mean,
Well, that was just, like there was a fire on Mission Street before the big fire at the Mission Market. There was so I work in this bar on 22nd Street. And so there was a fire in, well, I think it was like a Masonic, there's a hidden Masonic hall that was on Mission Street between 22nd and 23rd. And that caught fire. And so I forget what happened, but it was like, like there's a hole in the block there now. There still is a hole in the block there where that fire happened. And they had to, they eventually they knocked that down. Then the Mission Market building, which was on Mission at 22nd Street. It's I think the building predates the 1906 earthquake. I think, or it did. It's not there anymore, and I don't know if you remember that, but there was a Popeyes, a clothing store, La Tenya Taqueria, like a watch repair place, and then inside the building you could walk in from end to end, and there was like a fish market, a flower market, a vegetable market, all down in the lower, but it was called the Mission Market, and it was like sort of this kind of cool place, and like when I was working a bar shift, I would take a break and get dinner at Altenia. And then the second floor was all sort of professional stuff. There was like I think a accountant, a couple of body worker people up there, like what's the needles,
acupuncture, right?
Acupuncture, yeah.
Yeah.
And that, and then other stuff. I think Wise Sons had, they had moved something into it, like their bagel making facility was moved in there. But there were other, like older business, like travel agency, blah blah blah. And then I think it was I think it was 5 stories, but then the stories above that were residential. And the building caught fire, and it was a 4-alarm blaze, and it was, it made the national news. It was huge. It was just like this raging inferno, and it was just, and a guy died, and a bunch of people were displaced, and all the businesses were displaced, and the building wasn't completely destroyed, and then it caught fire 2 more times after that.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Like small fires, like people got in, started fire, blah blah blah, and then now there's just this big hole in the ground there, and I think the site is going to be developed into an whatever, and then like after that, literally on the other end of Mission Street, towards the outer Mission on 29th Street, where the 3200 Club used to be, and Cole Hardware, that building catches fire. Devastating, blows out the whole thing, and that's entirely gone. That's a city block, like gone. And now there's some kind of condos there, and they got that one. That one went up fast. So it just sort of resonated, and I was just like, and then occasionally walking up 24th Street, and I'd be walking up 24th Street, and then you'd see a bunch of burned stuff in the sidewalk, and it's like somebody had a fire in their apartment, and it's like we live in this city that's wooden framed houses, and it's just like,
right.
It's wood framed houses, and stuff just will just go up, and all this stuff was happening, with these buildings burning, was happening at the same time as the rise of the Google bus, the Twitter tax break, just the insane crunch of Uber and Lyft being let into the city. So there's, all of a sudden there's 50,000, extra cars coming into the city every day. And, you I was, teaching a lot of guitar lessons at the time, and I was like doing house calls, and I'm trying to get across town at 5 o'clock to get to my next lesson. And I'm watching these double-decker buses, go up and down streets that don't even have regular city bus routes on them. And I'm like, what the?
Wow.
And
Yeah.
it just felt like stuff was kind of out of control. Um, and like they're just like no, like the brakes weren't put on anything. And I just and the phrase "the mission is on fire" popped into my head, and I wrote a song about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And
That was it.
yeah, sure. And with this album, you have a songbook that you put together also with companion artwork by your wife. And tell me about kind of about that dynamic, because you wrote there that she had an uncanny knowing of what you wanted to see without you even having to say a word about it. So it's
Well, I mean,
Mhm.
I'll tell you, like I'd been thinking about trying to do, I was determined not to. When this record came around, I was kind of like, I don't think I want to do vinyl again. I'd done it twice, and it's. I was just there. There was a time when at that point there was like this crush of turning vinyl. Like the turn times were like um anywhere from 8 to 11 months to turn stuff around at the
Mm,
pressing plant. So like because all of a sudden, all the majors were, taking, who had closed their vinyl pressing plants, were clogging up every other, vinyl manufacturing place, like trying to, put out the new Taylor Swift record on vinyl, or put out a new box set or reissue something on vinyl. And it was like I was like, I don't know if I can do it. And then if and then touring with it is hard because it's expensive, heavy, and fragile. You know?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah.
I was like, I want to do something. I want to have something, so I'm not just putting out a CD. And I had a song in published in Acoustic Guitar Magazine, and it was like a revelation seeing a lead sheet for one of my songs. It was just like super duper cool,
Yeah.
and I was like, that's cool. Maybe I'll make a songbook. And that brought me back to like when I was a kid, and I was learning how to play guitar. Like when I was 17, 16, 17 years old, you could go to the music store and buy the songbook of the album that you liked. So I had a songbook of Harvest, by Neil Young, and it looked exactly like Harvest. It looked like the album. It's still in print. I mean, you can just go to the, that's still in print somewhere. I'm pretty sure. It's like the publishing company put out the songbook. So,
Yeah.
he was, on Reprise or whatever he was on, and his, music was published through Warner, Warner Brothers probably. And so Warner Brothers published his songs, published his sheet music, and it like, here's his songbook. It has all the songs in the order that they're on in the record, and it just has some extra artwork because you have these blank pages and stuff like that. So it looked like the fold out of the record, but with some extra pictures, and it's cool. And then I had so the real model for it was at the same time I had this book that combined Working Man's Dead and American Beauty, the two sort of like probably the most the defining era of the Grateful Dead. Both those books collected in a single songbook, and it was produced by, it was like, I think it was a Warner Brothers publication again, like they were, Warner Brothers was their publisher or whatever, but it was done at Alton Kelly and Stanley Mouse's studio. And I don't know if you know Kelly and Mouse. They're super, you don't think you know them, but you do. If you
Okay.
know anything about San Francisco, they're the preeminent poster artists of the 60s.
Oh,
So they were
okay.
underground, they were like heavily connected to underground comics and poster art. So they did all this incredible art. So Kelly Mouse, like every Fillmore poster and Matrix poster and everything was like, they had those deals. And they made this book of these two Grateful Dead records that is just an absolutely beautiful piece of artwork. It was like oversized on like a, like really beautiful, almost like cloth, cloth bound, but it's like, it was like paper that feels like it has cloth in it, and
Yeah.
every song had like a bespoke piece of artwork, like an incredible, like that was about the song. And I wanted that to be in a way what this came out looking like. So, my directive to Deirdre was, and she's not an illustrator. She's a painter. Deirdre's a fine art oil painter who doesn't do commissions, doesn't do any of that stuff. It's all, it all comes from her brain. So it's like, she's not an illustrator, but I was like, here are the songs, here are the lyrics. I trust you to come up with it. And she just came up with this stuff that is like kind of incredible,
Yeah.
Some of it was, like I had a photograph of the Mission Market building, and she used that a little bit as a model, but having the flames be marigolds, that ties into, the Day of the Dead, and like how important that is in this neighborhood, and marigolds are part of that. And just she just got every one of them. It was just like crazy. I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So I did have to browbeat her into doing it.
I mean, of course,
it was during, it was like during COVID, and she, she's an instructor at City College, teaches painting and drawing at City College, and she teaches at UC Davis, and everything closed. And you had if you were like a college teacher, you had like 8 days to figure out how to teach a studio art class on Zoom.
Right.
And so she had to figure out, how am I going to do this? I have to get internet at my studio, get a Zoom link, and be able to do a live demo over Zoom, and also do demos and add them to, and like teach, hundreds of students. And so, while this is going on, and she's doing this, and I'm not working because, the bar working is closed, and I'm just like sort of sitting on my ass. And I'm like going, so I need you to turn around these 12 paintings. Just
you're not too busy. Yeah.
If just like you find the time, but try and find the time to do it. So,
yeah.
I kid, but only partly.
Only a little bit. Only a little bit. No. It's a good combo, and the album is solid also. I dig it. So congratulations, and I know you're excited for it to come out. So
yeah, it's a long time coming, sort of.
Yeah, and you open to playing a song from the album?
I am. Yeah, I'll play. Why don't I play the title track? Just let me know if you can hear this. All right, I'll just do a little bit, and then just tell me if I'm good to go, and then I'll go. Just tell me this. Is that coming through all right?
Yeah, it sounds great. Yeah.
All right. Okay. A windy late September day, that San Francisco summer sun came streaming. I watched an old man nod and sway, his eyes slid shut, it looked like he was dreaming. Light a cigarette and wait, the bus is late, it's getting hard to earn a living. Then I pass it back to my junkie friend, 'cause in the end, I hope we're all forgiven. And it might take from now to kingdom come. You never hear me say I paid my dues. Just promise not to ask where I come from. I'll tell you about the 24th Street Blues. And underneath the freeway ramp, they're breaking camp, another sweep is coming. Garbage trucks come rolling up from a block away, you can hear the engines humming. Tyvek suits and rubber boots, they power wash the sidewalks till they're glistening. shopping carts have all rolled away. This town's pay to play, I guess. No one was listening. It might take from now to kingdom come. Man, you'll never hear me say I paid my dues. Just promise not to ask where I come from. Man, I'll tell you about the 24th Street Blues. It wasn't all that long ago. The neon glow was just so hypnotizing. Now the scaffolds rise and the buildings fall. You can stop to count the cranes on the horizon. And another evening settles in. Outside I hear the mission doorbells ringing. Soon we'll be gone too, just like me and you, once the wrecking ball stops swinging. So speak up if you got something to say. Don't just stand there staring at your shoes. If you know what's best, you best be on your way. Don't get stuck here with the 24th Street Blues. There you go.
There we go. I like it.
Thanks.
That was great. No.
Thank you. It's funny. These songs, I haven't really performed them that much live, so I'm still trying to figure out how to do it.
It sounded wonderful. Hey, look, it was a good practice for you playing them live, right? So
yeah.
I like it. Well, Tom, I want to thank you for taking the time. And are you planning on playing a bunch of shows around the album release?
Yes. I'm starting to stack them up right now. They'll all go on my website once they're all confirmed and stuff. So I think there should be a bunch of things. So anyway, people will know where to look.
Very cool. Well, I wish you luck with that. And thanks, Tom. I appreciate it. And I hope you have a great rest of your day ahead. Okay.
Thanks so much, man. Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed this.
That was my interview with Tom Heyman here on Concert Pipeline. And that takes us to the final segment on the program, the music news. Got a couple of stories to wind out the program. First is about Devo. They said that they were once paid $50 to quit, and now they're retiring after 50 years. So they're on their final retirement tour. They're calling it quits tour, or whatever you want to call it, and where they're not going to tour anymore, apparently. So, and I thought they had a San Francisco show that's lined up, but I don't know if that already happened or if it's going to happen. I have some funny Devo. I have a funny Devo story from back in the day. November 14th. They do have a show at celebrating 50 years of de-evolution, and they're playing in San Francisco at Golden Gate Theater. So if you want to see Devo, you can see them there. They did an interview, kind of reflecting on all the years of their careers, and they said they pretty much talk about how if you have four wives, it's like you have four wives and you're working together forever, and it's tricky. Any sort of relationship is tricky to maintain, so they've had to take breaks, but they're still kind of cracking at it, right? They were nominated for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame 3 times, but never really got it. So that's kind of on par with, what it's like to be in Devo. Let's see, Nero Young asked them to be involved in his experimental film Human Highway, which was released in 1982, and I think that was a break for them. And then What else? I mean, this article goes on and on, but while they're saying farewell to touring, it's not entirely the end. A new box set of rarities, Art Devo 1973 to 1977, is coming in September, along with the documentary in production. And there's no sloppy sentiment about retiring from performing for Mother's Vow. I'm looking forward to 2073. He jokes we'll play 100th anniversary Devo shows and then maybe retire. And Casal is more and more info. He says, I'm in denial because I love performing and I'll hate to see it go. It was part of Devo's DNA, but we did as well as we could for as long as we could. That's the story on Devo. Taking Back Sunday played a surprise set in Long Island. That's their hometown. It was in a garden, apparently, a house gig, and it was in Lyndhurst, Long Island, on Sunday, August 13th. And according to fans on social media, they took over the Smith Brothers' backyard, whoever the Smith Brothers are. The show served as a homecoming to the group. It was also a throwback to the early days of their career, where they used to play local shows in the same fashion. And people posted some videos online of this backyard show. I mean, a pretty small crowd, but people were getting pretty excited. I mean, it looks like there's like 75 people there probably. And people just thought that this was completely unreal. A fan wrote, only on Long Island can the stuff of dreams happen. You just had to be there. Someone else said, Taking Back Sunday and friends are in the backyard. Absolutely unreal. And I'm not sure how this came about, but they were. It was pretty exciting for a lot of people who got to be there and see it. Pretty cool. Okay, Dolly Parton put out a cover of "Let It Be" with Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, Mick Fleetwood, and Peter Frampton also appear on the cover of this cover that she did. And this is part of her forthcoming 49th solo studio album, Rockstar. She previously shared a cover of Queen's "We Are the Champions" from her forthcoming album. And she's done, I guess, some other songs as well. And this Rockstar album features 9 original songs and 21 covers of rock classics, including Purple Rain by Prince, the Rolling Stones' I Can't Get No Satisfaction, and many more. And the LP ends with 2 covers, Let It Be and Freebird, featuring Leonard Skinner members Gary Rossington, who passed away in March, and Artemis Pyle, along with posthumous vocals from Ronnie Van Zant. And this is set for release on November 17th. You pre-order the album. And for someone who turned down the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's invite into the Hall of Fame, she titling her album Rockstar and playing a bunch of rock songs. I mean, that's pretty cool. So I'll check it out. I'm not a huge Dolly Parton fan, but I'm definitely interested in different versions of covers and approaches to hearing cover songs. So I'll give it a listen. There's a lot of other songs that that feature Kid Rock, Steven Tyler, Stevie Nicks, Chris Stapleton, Miley Cyrus, Elton John, Lizzo, so many more. And the list goes on and on and on and on and on. So many songs. So check that out when it comes out. Speaking of Lizzo, her big girl dancers praised her for shattering limitations in a new open letter. Last month, it was revealed that the singer is being sued by 3 of her former dancers who cite accusations of sexual harassment in a hostile work environment. These 3 have accused her of these allegations, and her dance team captain, Shirlene Quigley, and production company Big Girl Big Touring Incorporated are also named as defendants in the suit. Lizzo responded and said she was hurt by the sensationalized accusations and has hired the lawyer who worked on recent cases against Jonah Hill, Johnny Depp, and Bill Cosby. After the conclusion of her special tour, her remaining dancers have shared a statement praising the singer. Statement thanked her for creating a platform where they've been able to parallel our passion with a purpose. We've had the time of our lives on the special tour. We've been so honored to share the stage with such amazing talent. The commitment to character and culture taking precedence over every movement and moment has been one of the greatest lessons and blessings that we could possibly ask for. So she has a lot of support in her corner. All right, one more story to wind us out here on Concert Pipeline. I mentioned last week how I got the chance to see Foo Fighters in Lake Tahoe. They just played Outside Lands, and Michael Bublé came out on stage to do a song with them also. And they've set a benefit show at Chase Center in San Francisco, so another show in the area. And this is a high-profile gig, fresh off the Outside Lands festival. They've announced plans to play Dreamfest concert at Chase Center on September 13th. It's held in conjunction with Salesforce Biggie Dreamforce 2023. Tickets start at $1,000, go all the way up to $1 million, and include a cocktail reception. And so that's pretty exciting, I'd say, huh? Yeah, well, I want those $1 million tickets. I want to know what that gets me. Chances are I've already had it since I met the man himself and I got the signed picture. To me, that's worth $1 million, right? So pretty excited about it. But I will probably not be in attendance at the Salesforce show. I don't have that kind of Skrilla to put on a concert, especially for $1,000 nosebleeds. I think I'm okay. But pretty exciting that they're doing that, though, and raising money for a good cause. All right, that is our show for today. So thank you for tuning in. I don't have another band lined up at this moment right now, so it might be a week or two till our next episode. But for all of us here at Concert Pipeline, I'm Steve Jones. We'll catch you next time.